Hello, and welcome to the ChristiTutionalist Politics show. Over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a listener that I can barely begin to express how much I appreciate from the bottom of my heart you being here, as I know you have a lot of options. As Listen Notes, the podcast platform says, there are about 168.9 million plus podcasts you could choose from. And I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me, as indeed it is just me on the podcast outside, at least for the initial episodes. All substance, no muss, no fuss, no fluff, no fancy or flashy high production inserts or intro, just straight to the key discussion points. A show that will look at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian United States constitutionalist lens. Hence, obviously, the ChristiTutionalist Politics title. I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and last name is spelled L-E-N-A-R-D, like most pronounce Leonard, but without the O, an author of a very non-traditional but Christian, nonetheless Christian book, co-host of Savaged Unfiltered podcast, and for purposes of this show, most notably a blogger for thelibertybeacon.com, from which most of the content for the show will be derived. These are not going to be long, drawn-out episodes. I just want something short for you to be able to tune into, get the highlights, food for thought. You can then delve deeper into via my online articles and reach your own conclusion. And as Graham Norton would say on his late night talk show, let's get on with the show. Season 1, Episode 5, titled Theater Lobby for Snacks and Politics. Mainly going to discuss and be based on my thelibertybeacon.com piece titled, Let's Go to the Lobby and Get Ourselves Some Snacks and Politics. So, not going to do this often, but let me start by singing. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. For those of you old enough to remember that in theater intermission or opening segment, the cartoon hamburger, hot dog, popcorn, things of raisinets dancing across the screen to try to get you to go to the concession stand. For those of you tuned in via my YouTube or Rumble channel to catch the video sneak peek before the release of the audio episode, or behind the scenes look of the recording of the episode, we'll see my background is my local MJR Theater, the Epic Theater. Love that place. MJR Theaters here in Michigan. And also, you'll notice I'm wearing my Beyond the Mask Theater Captain shirt. That's right. Beyond the Mask, which came out ages upon ages ago from Burns Family Christian Studios here in Michigan. Great movie. Since we're going to be talking about movie and politics today, great movie on the premise, like my book, Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, historical fiction, or as I call it, faction, a blend of fact and fiction set in the American Revolution is Beyond the Mask, on the premise of someone having escaped the clutches of the law and gets involved in stopping an assassination plot against George Washington. Really good film, greatly recommend it. But mainly today, I wanted to start off talking about films, and my favorite film of all time, The 13th Floor, which was kind of a Matrix film before the Reeves trilogy, now quadology. Who knows if there'll be a fifth, more on that coming, type Matrix film based on the book Simulacron 3, a sci-fi book from the 60s, from the great director Roland Emmerich, who brought us the likes of Stargate, the Independence Day films, The Day After Tomorrow, Moonfall, of like great blockbuster films. Not to say he hasn't had a couple stinkers here and there. It happens. And looking forward to, hopefully soon, he will be able to release Stargate trilogy of films reboot back at the theaters, but he's been fighting MGM, who has the final yay or nay. They own the trademark and the rights to the Stargate franchise at this point, even the Stargate spin-off TV series. So they're nixing so far for the last decade, potentially even 2 decades. He's been working on rebringing a Stargate trilogy of films back to the theater. But the political aspect of it is that people preferring delusion, a bubble over reality, a desire to escape into a matrix like the 13th Floor is. And the 13th Floor, in my mind, is far more theoretically possible than the Matrix series of Reeves films, because think of it like this: with modern technology, and me being a former IT guy, and the author of Simulacron 3 would have never known that we got to today. He was a visionary. But think virtual 3D goggles and the SimCity game, where you could put on your 3D goggles and download yourself into your SimCity and interact with the Sims. That's kind of the premise of the 13th Floor, a very realistic take on a Matrix, in my opinion. But the escapism, the delusion, the bubble, the wanting and preferring another fictional, non-real place to interact in rather than our own reality. And I get that, right? Crime-ridden streets and the destruction going on around us politically and literally at times in the streets, with Antifa and blackline Marxist groups wandering around burning down communities. So I can get the notion that someone might want to download themselves into their sim game and interact with them for a while rather than deal with the reality. And other movies we want to talk about are like Guardians of the Galaxy 3. In that film, there's a great line. Rocket says, and this isn't a big spoiler because this is shown in the trailer, most of the trailers. Rocket says of the villain, he wanted perfection, but what he really wanted was that he hated things the way they are now. So that's true of all tyrants, whether it be communist, fascist, socialist, whatever. They all promise some new utopia, but what they really want, they promise perfection, but they just hate things the way they are. And they want to be the one who lords over the imperfection. They promise different, but like the Who sings, Meet the old boss, same as the new boss. And also, as my friend Ed Bondarenka of Your American Heritage, Wham Radio, Saturdays, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. You could go to whamradio.com, check out the Saturday shows, Abolitionist Roundtable in the mornings at 9, Trigger Talk from 11 to 1 with Dick Kupke, 1 to 2 is Moment of Clarity with Pastor Rick and Ed, usually co-hosts. Ed Bondarenka is the host of Your American Heritage from 2 to 3. And Ed liked to say about the Marvel films, the political message of Thanos. Thinking about that, it really relates today to today's Davos people of the world, the New World Order types. And this is not conspiracy theory. You could go to their own websites and look this stuff up. I mean, they meet in Davos every year. It's not some Dr. Evil hidden volcano lair where the leaders of the world secretly meet. They meet right out in the open now, and some of them do have a depopulation agenda. Do you remember the Georgia Guidestones that someone recently blew up and they had to be dismantled, talking about trying to limit the population of the planet to around 500 million or a billion people at some point? So this isn't fantasy. So Ed, I had always thought, had a great analogy there on the Thanos and his snapping his fingers and people vanishing throughout the universes to reduce population. You could look at that as a climate hoax agenda, right? We need to depopulate to save the planets or save the universe nonsense. But as in rocket style, they promise perfection, but they just hate things the way they are. They want to be lords over the imperfection. And guess what? You're some of the imperfect people they want to eliminate, as has happened all throughout history. Hitler, Stalin, Lenin, Mao, Che, all over the planet, these left-wing ideologies, and they are left-wing, whether they are communist, fascist, socialist, monarchies, have eliminated their opponents. Like we see happening today, not outright murder like Putin using polonium tablets to murder his opposition. And spare me the Saudi Arabia killing Khashoggi. Khashoggi was an Al-Qaeda terrorist sympathizer apologist. He was an enemy of the state of Saudi Arabia, just as America, I'm sorry, hate to break it to you, we assassinate enemies of the state here too. And now under Biden, they've legalized the going after, they've weaponized, I'm sorry, that's the word I'm looking for. They have weaponized, like Obama did, the IRS during his terms. Now the left is weaponizing the DOJ and the FBI and all the other alphabet soup agencies to come after Americans. The mama bears at the school boards demanding their rightful parental rights, and that school boards are supposed to answer to them, not the unconstitutional Department of Education that has to go. It's unconstitutional. Schools and education are a 10th Amendment states' rights and a we the people local rights issue. But back to films in general. We've all seen it. The wokeism in films of late. You see it all over social media when a new film comes out, and the complaints about the wokest agenda going on in all these films, especially from Disney of late, and people boycotting Disney. I want to go back here, though, then to The Matrix. because a lot of people sadly don't recognize this. And at thelibertybeacon.com, I do have an article from back when, the enemy of my enemy notion, where I discuss the Matrix film. So the 13th Floor piece, the let's all go to the lobby, get ourselves some snacks and politics, is not the only article I've employed the movie vehicle to discuss politics. Most people don't know that the Matrix 4 is, quote, a trans allegory film. And that's from the creator of the Matrix films himself that made Matrix 4. Think of the character. The character's name is Switch. Switch, as in trans, as in switching, transing genders, if you didn't get that. And there are other hidden wokest messages in Matrix 4, as well as conservative tropes that they try to trot out and accuse us as stereotypical right-wingers in that film. And the reason that is because the creator, the original creator and the director for Matrix 4 got into a dust-up with Elon Musk on Twitter. And Twitter, Elon, not Twitter itself, Elon used the red pill meme that so many of us do. And the creator of the Matrix freaks out because he, of course, never intended for that to become blue pill delusional leftists, right pill, right wing reality people, as it has become. So to push back, to fight back, he made Matrix 4 a wokest film. And beyond that, I get it. You know, I go to the movies a lot. I like going to the movies. I like watching movies. Mindless escapism on occasion is a good thing. It's an important thing. To clear our minds on occasion. The problem comes in where we do it far too often and we're permanently trying to escape reality. We have to get off our couch, to not just go to the theater, stop watching the ball games, right? Oh, what's on TV? Politics? I can't be involved in politics. I don't have time. I've got a reality show to watch, which really has nothing to do with reality. They're not directly scripted, but they're outlined and guidelined and nudged in certain directions. They're not reality TV, but I have a The Liberty Beacon piece from a while back on the mindless escapism, the title being breaks and distractions, not just okay, but healthy from time to time. So I hope you'll check that out. And we should be putting a copy of that link in the show notes for this. But mindless escapism is good. You've got to clear your head on occasion. The problem comes in is when you're like the 13th Floor, constantly escaping into some delusion away from reality to avoid reality and pretend it doesn't affect you. While you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice, as the Rush tune says. If you leave things up to others, what the others do puts an imposition on you. You have to sow in order to reap. Otherwise, you let others sow rotten food, we're all then forced to choke down. I recently seen the new Jennifer Lawrence film, No Hard Feelings, just a mindless escapism film. I knew in advance it was like a John Hughes remake of Can't Buy Me Love, for those of you who remember McDreamy Patrick Dempsey when he first got his start. That was one of his early films. But the John Hughes different films, the romantic teen comedies, The No Hard Feelings is kind of a remake of the Can't Buy Me Love that people seem to reboot the John Hughes genre films every decade to catch the new generations of moviegoers. Another recent one I seen of late was The Flash. I was really surprised at how good that was. I don't watch that TV series, but The Flash was really good. And issues of the butterfly effect, for those who remember that 70s show, Ashton Kutcher played in the original The Butterfly Effect. Great film about, yes, if we become interdimensional, as I coined the term, because we have interstellar, we have interdimensional. It should be interdimensional, in my opinion, not time travelers. Go back. What do we change? What happens? What do we affect that may change things? The Flash movie deals with that, and there's a lot of great cameos. And of course, another of my favorite films trilogy, the Back to the Future trilogy. Anything that deals with interdimensional travel, I love to watch. But sometimes distractions are okay and they're needed. I walked out of the Fast X film, Fast 10. Oh my God, 15 minutes out. It's like they should have stopped at Fast 6, left it about the family after Walker's death, left it. And here comes a bad pun. Fast XXX. Fast 30 will be coming right down the road. They won't stop making these movies. Fast XXX. Not an X-rated film. XXX 30, as in how fast can Dom get his walker going? Get it? Walker, Paul Walker? Okay, I know. That's probably in poor taste. Rest in peace, Paul. You were great. Sad you left us way before your time. And another article I have on thelibertybeacon.com is also about needing to keep a sense of humor, which is why movies can be helpful, to keep our sense of humor, to go see an occasional comedy on time, on occasion. No matter how serious things get, we need to keep our sense of humor. And with that, I'm 20 minutes in. I'll run down on perhaps some other pieces you may not have known, because I wish I would have started the ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast long ago to coincide with my thelibertybeacon.com pieces, because there are now so many past ones. Some will come up during like this episode and future episodes. I'll reference back to. I'll try to remember to include them in the show notes. The first one ever I wrote for The Liberty Beacon was an old before its news article that I had written several years ago about today's federalism versus original intent federalists. Basically, original federalists versus today's fascia federalists, the fasciocrats, the deep state establishment hacks, not the uniparty stuff. There are plenty of good Republicans. I call myself a Constitutionalist by choice, a Republican only by necessity. There are a lot of good Republicans, just not enough of us. tinyurl.com/recruit conservatives. See that article. We need to recruit more Constitutionalists into the Republican Party, take it back, bring it back to the solid constitutional platform that the Republican Party still has. Yes, fighting the rhinos and the CINOs is in the spring. Primary is rhino season. Spring, is rhino season. The fall is jackass season. You fight the rhinos and the CINOs in the spring and the primary, and elect Republicans up and down the ticket in the fall. But yes, fight the rhinos and CINOs as hard as we do the fasciocrats in the spring. Election reforms, common sense protections needed now. School reforms, parental control choice needed now. Can we trust polling results? I go into that. Another one is brace yourself. I'm about to agree with a Democrat, sort of. You really want to read that. The overblown right-wing extremist terrorism narrative. The death of global warming. Again, another repurposed before its news piece I brought over to the Liberty Beacon. The Party of No, which is again about taking back the GOP to the platform from the rhinoism, the establishment hackism. And again, rhinos and CINOs, along with fascocrats, make up the deep state. It's not a uniparty thing. There are a lot of good Republicans. There are next to no good dumb-ocrats. Those comprise the deep state establishment hacks. We need to get our language correct, because I have a couple The Liberty Beacon pieces on that. The left constantly twisting and warping of language. Look for those. We have to be precise in our words. And the 2022 election, the ugly, only mildly wet red drizzle. Time for new GOP leadership piece. I demand my equity as a male to murder for my convenience. Wow, did that one set the internet alight? Yes, if women have this supposed right to murder their child in the womb for convenience, then I want my equity, like the left constantly talks about. Correct? I demand my right to murder for my convenience. Roe v. Wade was based on privacy. Why, therefore, do I not have the right to murder you in the privacy of my basement, chop your body up, and sell off the body parts like Planned Slaughterhood does? Another piece, U.S. Patriot Marine Paul Whelan remains in Russia, which is of course close to our hearts here in Michigan, since Paul was from Michigan. I don't have a piece on the border guard, Brian Terry, that was murdered by the Fast and Furious Eric Holder Obama guns they let the Mexican cartels have. But that is, of course, an issue close to us, since Brian Terry was originally from Michigan. His family still lives here. Free speech yelling fire in a theater. Well, we've just had the recent SCOTUS ruling about you cannot compel speech. Well, I spoke about that already. Free speech yelling fire in a theater. Yelling fire in a theater is a dumb example. It's always been stupid. Stop using it, because fire is either a fact or a fraud. If you incite unrest by yelling fire where it doesn't exist, that's not opinion. That's not free speech. You can be charged with fraud, and you have to defend yourself for that incitement of unrest. As I really, really thought there was a fire. I wasn't just trying to incite a panic. On and on. A fun piece, right? I talked about needing to keep a sense of humor. Biden, the liar in chief. Well, I wrote George Santos for POTUS 2024, a parody. If we're going to go up against Biden, maybe shouldn't we nominate our biggest liar too? And instead of a debate, we have a lie-off. And the best liar is the one that wins. Bumbler-in-chief Biden wears his blinders to the border. Latest wokeism cries of racism, white supremacy, and cultural appropriation. Release the Kraken, IRS agents. 87,000 new IRS agents. You expected less? You think they're going after the rich? What, were you born yesterday? They are here to go after the middle class and the poor who can't afford the expensive lawyers and tax accountants to wiggle out of paying the taxes, to knuckle under, stealing more from the middle class, where the majority of the tax base, the tax revenues into the treasury come from. That's where the money is. You could take all the money from the billionaires and trillionaires in the United States. It would not cover the US budget for 1 year. Not 1 year. That's not where the money lies. Twisting, warping of language, part 1 and part 2. Are there aliens? Not the open border kind, the ET kind. A little bit fun there too, dealing with ETs. The enemy of my enemy notion that I mentioned that deals with the Matrix quadology of film. Crime, criminals, the left strain lacking credibility. The trumped up legal attacks continue. Introducing the latest superhero, Illuma Baby. Again, going back to the pro-life cause. Brace yourself, I'm about to agree with a Democrat sort of part 2, another fun one to read. And on and on and on they go. I'm up to 46 pieces there now. They drop every Saturday, as does the ChristiTutionalist podcast. They will be inexorably linked here going forward. So thank you all for tuning in. Take care. God bless. Please go to thelibertybeacon.com. In the search bar, put Joseph M. Leonard. Again, that's Leonard without an O, Lenard. See you next week. Thank you for having tuned in for ChristiTutionalist Politics show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you, available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. And please tune in to Savage Unfiltered podcast, of which I am a co-host. And be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. Indeed, just me on the podcast side end of things. All substance, no fluff. No fancy high production intro or inserts, at least yet, just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart, as I know you have over 168.9 million plus podcasts out there you could choose from. Thank you again so much for tuning into mine. Take care. God bless.